So, hi everyone, and welcome to the sunniest spot in the house. I am coming to you today to talk about the best books I've read recently and what's on my to-read list. And as always, I want to hear what you're reading, so add your favorite most recent reads to the comments and recommend what I should read next as well. And I will pull out my Goodreads list because, quite honestly, in my effort to read 100 books this year, again, it's only March, and this might have been ill-advised. Every week I'm going through at least 2 books, so I will be referring to the list to be like, okay, in the last month, what did I read? Let's go back and look. Okay, so first book I read, she's been a long-term YouTuber and blogger, Chelsea Fagan from The Financial Diet. She wrote a book unexpectedly about having people over. So not about finances, which is I would say the main format of her content on YouTube, but about being a good host and being a good guest. And as someone who, as you know, loves to cook and loves to host and make people feel welcome, it was lovely. It reinforced for me a lot of what I already do as a host, but also gave me permission to do things like have elements of every meal that I did not make from scratch, right? It's kind of freeing to give yourself that permission and be like, okay, I'm going to buy the dessert, or I'm going to delegate so-and-so to bring the drinks. And that's been really lovely. So it's called Having People Over, a modern guide to planning, throwing, and attending every type of party. Quick read. I read it in an afternoon. So could you. I would recommend it for anyone who is currently a host and wants to both make a little more easeful and elevate the hosting process, and also for many of us who find the concept of hosting, like a dinner, a little get-together, really insurmountable or challenging. It makes it less scary. Having People Over by Chelsea Fagan was a lovely little joy of book. You may not know this about me, but I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. Everything she's written has been fun and fast-paced, and the characters are so interesting and engaging, right? It takes what I would describe as kind of beach read adjacent topic and makes it so much more interesting and well-paced. I can never put her books down when I start them. I most recently read Atmosphere, which is, I believe, her most recent release of a book. It's about an extremely gay, but pretty much in the closet at first, aspiring astronaut and her path to get up to space and help other astronauts get up to space, set in the 80s. I didn't quite know what to expect from the subject matter because it's kind of sci-fi adjacent. Normally it's not my genre, but if Taylor Jenkins Reid writes it, I will read it. So I, again, loved the pacing, loved the character development. Was I sobbing in the middle of a co-working space while reading this book on my break? Oh yes, I absolutely was. And so will you, my friends, and so will you. So Atmosphere was just excellent. Would recommend. Check it out now. This is probably my favorite book of the month. Last 2 books that I'll talk about that I read this month. So this one's more on the nonfiction realm of things. Amanda Hess is a journalist. She has written for publications like the New York Times for a very long time. Don't quote me on whether or not she's still writing for them, but she wrote and has written quite extensively about the internet culture, online culture, and how it has developed and continues to develop. This book specifically, Second Life, which shares the name of a podcast I really enjoy called Second Life, but is a different thing altogether. But Second Life by Amanda Hess is a digital age journalist take on what it is and what it means to raise children in the digital age. My partner and I aren't sure if we're going to have kids. We're in the maybe camp right now, which means for me, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. But reading Amanda Hess's experience of her journey to become pregnant and then the appification of her fertility and pregnancy and post-pregnancy journey was fascinating. very eye-opening into how our information gets sold in the digital age. I don't know if that's comforting or not necessarily. Reading this book while I've watched friends of mine also go through the process of becoming parents. We're just in that phase of our lives right now, where many of our friends are getting pregnant and having children, is to watch firsthand different parents approach how much they interface applications and technology into how they raise their kids is really interesting. And really no judgment either way, but Amanda Hess's take on that process I found interesting, intriguing. Her whole reporting style is very data-driven, so it both mixes the personal story aspect and then the data-driven aspect of parenting in the digital age. She now has 2 kiddos, and I wish her all the best. So, Second Life by Amanda Hess, whether or not you are a parent or want to become one, I found interesting, particularly from a sociological perspective. The last book that I want to talk to you about that I recently read is called Patchwork, a graphic biography of Jane Austen. I would say, a Jane Austen newbie in a lot of ways. I've read Pride and Prejudice, and I've seen the movie, forgive me, the 2005 one, not the BBC one. Come at me in the comments many times, but I really haven't read much of her other works. This book, though, in particular, is a graphic novel. Again, not my usual genre. I had to wait on the library waiting list for this one for some time. I would say it's very popular right now. And I really found it joyful. It both gives you the context of Jane Austen as a person, as a writer, kind of what we can glean from her, some of her surviving letters and family documentation. You know, her sister actually destroyed most of her letters after Jane's death in her early 40s. So we don't have a whole lot of personal information about Jane from Jane's perspective, but what we do have is telling and paints the picture of a bright and caring and compassionate woman who was trying to make the best of the circumstances she was born into, right? She's born into an upper class family, but women at that time were so constrained in what they could do or who they could be. So as a woman of her class, it was considered inappropriate for her to have a job. And so she kind of wrote on the side, and for much of her life, her identity was kept secret. But most of her day and the days of the women around her was spent, getting married, becoming mothers, many of whom did not survive the process of multiple childbirth. And their free time was running the household, if they could afford the staff, doing things like needlework and waiting and waiting and waiting. Very well done. I also think it gives you the even broader context for the growing British Empire and the extreme wealth and luxury Jane found herself either directly privileged to receive or adjacent to, and how it was supported by colonialization and the exploitation of labor, not just of peoples in places as far away as India, but also closer to home in some of the newly established manufacturing facilities and child labor. So I think it's pretty clear-eyed in what Great Britain was like in the early 1800s when Jane was writing and becoming Jane Austen, who we know today, and also painting the picture of Jane herself. I also found the drawings really beautiful and sweet. So I would highly recommend you read Patchwork. Just even from a visual perspective, it's a beautiful book to look at. To wrap things up, here's what I have on my to-read list. Because you know me, I'm always simultaneously reading a lot of books, and I have like a stack. I'm literally looking at it right now. Like I have a stack of books that I'll be reading next. And isn't it a wonderful thing to have lots of books to read and get excited about? I'm trying not to get overwhelmed. Again, this 100-book thing. Fun, a reach goal, I would say, but am I losing the plot a little bit? Maybe. Okay, so what I'm currently reading and what I will read. What I'm currently reading is Simone de Beauvoir's The Image of Her. So this is a newer translation, again from Lauren Collins. I've talked about her before on my channel. She's an American writer based in Paris, and her translation style is evocative, clear. It takes some of the kind of heavy-handed translations of earlier translations I've read of Simone de Beauvoir's work and enlivens it. It makes it feel more modern, a little more accessible. So that's what I'm reading right now, and I'm in it. Secondly, I'm also reading it's a compilation of the best American food and travel writing from 2025. I love reading about and writing about food and travel myself. So this is just a lovely way to get in one place a really high quality compilation of writing about food and the context we find ourselves in when we eat and consume and cook ourselves. So there's always more there, and there's always some complexity. On my to-read shelf, things I haven't yet started include Dear Writer by Maggie Smith, who is a local author based here in Columbus, Ohio, and her advice for writing and writers, I believe. White on White, if you'll see a theme. I love reading books set in and about Paris, so you'll hear a lot from me about this particular genre. Jane Austen's Bookshelf by Rebecca Romney. This, in my theme of reading books about Jane Austen, apparently, is looking at the books that Jane herself would have read, who are particularly the women writing concurrent to or prior to Jane becoming an author herself that influenced her writing. And finally, Patti Smith, who is a rocker from the mid to late 20th century and a poet and writer and activist, has a new memoir out. A dear friend recommended this book to me. Apparently she is a really standout writer and has multiple books. I did not know this, and I'm always willing to learn more about music and poetry, film culture, things that aren't just book specific, because that's my milieu. I really understand and get it and enjoy that. So getting out of my comfort zone in terms of what I read and who I read is always important to me. So that's that, friends. I haven't done one of these videos in a while, so I'm glad to come to you today and just sit and chat about books. I love doing this sort of thing, and I hope you enjoy. Tell me what you're reading in the comments. Tell me what I should put on my to-read list. I always welcome new suggestions, and we're just building a fun little cozy community here of people who love to read and who maybe don't have the same outlets to talk obsessively about books with all their friends all the time. Who has the time? So, as always, thanks for coming. I'm Sarah, and I'll see you soon.